Every single person on this planet is given the same 24 hours. That's the one thing the most powerful CEO and the most overwhelmed student have in common. The clock doesn't care who you are. It doesn't speed up for the ambitious or slow down for the uncertain. And yet, when we look at people who are truly successful, not just wealthy, but fulfilled, impactful, deeply alive, we notice they seem to live their 24 hours differently. There's a quiet confidence to them, a direction, a sense of clarity that doesn't waver with the weather or the noise of the world. It's not that they have more time, it's that they start with something most people overlook. They start with why. When we talk about why, we're not talking about goals or plans, we're talking about purpose, a reason that sits underneath the actions, something deeper than a to-do list. Most people wake up and immediately check their phone. They dive into the demands of the day without questioning whether those demands actually matter. They run fast, but often in circles. They answer emails, attend meetings, handle tasks, but go to bed wondering why they still feel behind, still feel unfulfilled. That's because movement isn't the same as progress, and activity isn't the same as achievement. Without a clear why, effort becomes exhausting instead of energizing. Successful people begin their day differently, not with urgency, but with intention. Not with noise, but with clarity. Before they act, they align. Before they schedule, they center. They know that their most valuable resource isn't time, it's direction. Because when you know why you're doing something, every minute becomes more meaningful. It's the difference between checking off a task and contributing to a mission. Between filling your calendar and fulfilling your purpose. People often ask, how do I become more productive? But that's the wrong question. Productivity is just efficiency. It answers the how. But if you haven't answered why, then you're just getting better at doing things that might not matter. And that's not success. That's burnout disguised as progress. Real success starts by asking harder questions. Why do I care about this? Why does this work matter? Why am I spending my life this way? Notice, Huli, truly live from this question. Whether they're building a business, leading a family, or pursuing a craft, they wake up with something pulling them forward, not pushing them, pulling. There's a difference. Being pushed means you're trying to prove something. Being pulled means you found something worth following. When you have a strong why, you don't need to be motivated every day. Motivation is temporary. But meaning fuels discipline. Meaning sustains you through resistance, through fatigue, through failure. Meaning gives every second weight and every hour direction. Think of the most successful people you admire. Think of someone who moves you, who challenges you, who lives with that rare kind of certainty. You'll find that they don't chase time. They don't race against the clock. They align with it. Because they're not asking, how much can I get done today? They're asking, what do I want to give today? And that question only makes sense when you've anchored yourself in your why. Your why doesn't have to be world-changing. It just has to be real. It might be building a future for your kids, creating something that didn't exist before, helping others rise. Learning, healing, teaching, growing. Your why is yours. But it has to be lived. Not someday, not when it's convenient, but now. In the way you start your morning, in the way you answer that next email, in the way you say yes or no. So your whys is what gives those tiny decisions power. That's what successful people know. The little things matter more when they point to something bigger. A person without a why is a boat without a rudder. They'll drift wherever the wind takes them. They'll feel busy but aimless, tired but not accomplished. But someone with a why, they might still face storms. They might get knocked off course, but they always come back because they know where they're going. They know who they are. That's the core of leadership, not telling others what to do, but showing what it looks like to live on purpose. And the only way to do that is to start with why. It's easy to get caught up in the rush, to measure success by how much you've done, how fast you've moved, how many boxes you've checked. But none of that matters if it's not tied to something that matters to you. Don't just fill your day with meaning, with values, with vision. Take 10 minutes in the morning, not to scroll, not to plan, but to remember why you started, why you care, why this day matters. If you don't define it, the world will do it for you, and the world is full of distractions, but very little direction. Success isn't about having more time. It's about being more connected to the time you already have. It's about being so grounded in your why that the world's chaos can't shake you, that no matter what interruptions come, you come back to center, you come back to purpose. And in doing that, you lead not because of a title or a position, but because your life becomes an example of what clarity looks like in motion. So see, before you chase the next goal, the next strategy, the next hack to get more done, pause. Ask yourself the question that most people are too busy to ask: why am I doing this? If you can answer that with honesty, you'll find that time doesn't control you, you begin to control time. And that's when everything changes. If you ask most people what they need more of, they'll tell you the same thing: time. If only I had more hours in the day, they'll say. If only I could stretch the clock a little longer. But time isn't the problem. We all get 24 hours. It's the most democratic resource on earth. You can't buy more of it. You can't slow it down. You can't fast forward it. And yet, some people make more of their 24 than others, not because they manage time better, but because they manage their energy differently. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that success is about time management. That if we just wake up earlier, schedule tighter, multitask better, we'll finally get ahead. But here's the truth most people don't talk about. It doesn't matter how full your calendar is. If you're exhausted, you can block out your day down to the minute. But if your mind is scattered and your heart's not in it, you're just moving through the motions. Activity without energy is like driving with no fuel. You'll make noise, you'll look busy, but you won't go far. Truly successful people don't just ask, what do I need to do today? They ask, when am I at my best to do it? They've learned to listen to their body, their mind, their rhythms. They understand that energy is not infinite. It's a resource that needs to be protected, restored, and focused. Because the truth is, not every hour is created equal. An hour of fully focused, energized work can be worth more than 5 hours of scattered, distracted busyness. Think about your own day. When are you most alert, most creative, most focused? Most people know this intuitively, but they don't plan around it. They schedule meetings during their peak hours and leave their most meaningful work for when they're tired. They waste their freshest energy on things that don't matter and then wonder why they can't make progress on what does. Successful people flip that. They match their most valuable work to their highest energy moments. They give their best energy to their best priorities. This isn't about working harder, it's about working wiser. It's the realization that your brain at 9 a.m. is not the same as your brain at 4 p.m., that deep thinking requires a different kind of presence than answering emails. That creating something meaningful, writing, designing, strategizing, requires mental clarity, not just time on the calendar. So they protect that space. They guard those high energy hours like sacred ground, not because they're rigid, but because they know that how they show up is more important than how long they show up. And when the energy dips, they don't pretend it doesn't matter. They don't guilt themselves into pushing through every time. They rest. They step away. They recharge. They understand that rest isn't the opposite of productivity. It's the foundation of it. Just like a muscle grows not during the lift, but during the recovery, the mind sharpens not in constant use, but in intentional pause. They don't wear burnout as a badge of honor. They see it as a signal, a reminder that even the most purpose-driven life needs rhythms of renewal. There's a myth in our culture that being busy is the same as being valuable. That if your calendar is packed, you must be doing something right. But the most successful people don't let the world define their worth by their level of exhaustion. They measure impact, not hours, results, not rush, presence, not just performance. They don't try to do everything. They choose what matters most and give that their full, focused energy. And that takes courage, because the world will constantly ask more of you. It will reward overextension. It will applaud the hustle and glamorize the grind. But at what cost? Drained leaders can't lead well. Exhausted creators can't create deeply. Worn down people don't build lasting legacies. You can't give what you don't have. That's why the best leaders prioritize energy. Not selfishly, but strategically. Because they know their energy isn't just for them. It fuels the teams they lead, the families they love, the missions they carry. This shift from time to energy is subtle, but it's everything. It moves you from control to connection, from pressure to purpose. You stop trying to squeeze more in, and you start asking, what's worth giving my energy to today? That one question changes the way you wake up. It changes what you say yes to. It changes how you work, how you rest, and how you show up, not just for your tasks, but for your life. When you look at successful people, it's not just what they do that stands out. It's how they do it. They bring presence, clarity, focus, passion. They walk into a room and shift the atmosphere. Not because they're louder or faster, but because they're fully there. You can't fake that kind of energy. It comes from alignment, from living in tune with your values, from honoring your rhythms, from knowing when to push and when to pause. This isn't about becoming superhuman. It's about becoming more human, more aware, more intentional, more in tune with the life you're building, not just the work you're doing. Because life isn't just about getting things done. It's about becoming someone along the way. And the version of you the world needs most is the one that's fully alive, fully energized, fully engaged. So the next time you feel stretched thin, overwhelmed, or scattered, don't just look at your schedule. Look at your energy. Where is it going? What's draining it? What's renewing it? You can't manage time. It keeps moving no matter what. But you can manage how you show up in the time you have. And that's the difference between those who survive the day and those who own it. The people who make the biggest difference in the world aren't always the ones with the most time, but they are the ones who've learned how to protect their energy, direct it with purpose, and invest it where it counts. And in the end, that's what turns 24 hours into a legacy. There's a quiet difference between those who live intentionally and those who simply survive the day. It doesn't always show up in the way they dress or the car they drive. It shows up in the way they enter a room, the calm, the clarity, the sense that they're not rushing to catch up, but moving with purpose. That difference begins long before the world sees them. It starts the moment they wake up. The people we call successful don't leave their days to chance. They design them carefully, intentionally, and that one decision changes everything. Most people wake up and instantly step into reaction mode. The alarm rings and they're already behind. Emails, notifications, obligations, everything is pulling at them before their feet even hit the floor. Their first thoughts are about what they have to do, who they have to answer to, what might go wrong. Their day owns them before they even start it. They don't design their day. They defend it minute by minute from interruption and overload. And at the end, they collapse into bed wondering why it all feels like a blur. They were busy, yes, but was any of it meaningful? Now imagine someone else. Someone who begins their day not in a rush, but with rhythm, who doesn't grab their phone first thing, but instead grounds themselves in something deeper. Maybe it's a moment of silence, a journal entry, a thought of gratitude, or a quiet breath before the noise begins. They take a few minutes to ask, what matters today? What kind of person do I want to be when I walk into that meeting, when I lead that call, when I greet my family at the end of the day? These are not just time management questions. These are leadership questions. And they don't ask them once a year at a retreat. They ask them every morning. Successful people don't let the day set their tone. They set the tone for the day. That's the power of design. It's not about control or rigidity. It's about alignment. It's about choosing deliberately what gets your time, your energy, your focus. Because if you don't choose, someone else will. And not all demands are created equal. Not every request is worthy of your attention. Not every fire needs to be put out by you. Designing your day starts with clarity. Clarity about what matters most, not just in theory, but in practice. What moves the mission forward? What aligns with your values? What brings out your best? When you know that, everything else becomes easier to filter. You're not just reacting to urgency, you're responding to purpose. That's the mindset shift. It's not about doing more, it's about doing what matters most and doing it well. When you look at high performers, those who consistently make an impact without burning out, you'll notice something. They have rituals, anchors, structures that create space for focus. They don't wing it. They don't rely on last-minute adrenaline to get things done. They build systems that reflect their values. Maybe it's a block of time each morning for deep work, no meetings, no distractions. Maybe it's a daily review where they check in on progress, not just tasks. Maybe it's a moment of stillness before walking into a challenging conversation. These habits are not just about efficiency, they're about identity. They reinforce who they want to be, not just what they want to achieve. And yes, life happens. Plans shift. Unexpected things show up. It's part of the deal. Designing your day isn't about perfection. It's about intention. It's about having a map even if the route changes. Because when you know where you're headed, you're less likely to get lost in the noise. You're less likely to be pulled into someone else's crisis. You're more likely to respond with clarity instead of panic. That's what real confidence looks like. It's not arrogance. It's alignment. It's knowing you've chosen your day rather than letting the day choose you. There's also something deeper at work here. When you design your day, you're not just organizing your schedule, you're honoring your life. You're acknowledging that your time is valuable, that your energy is not infinite, that your presence, your creativity, your leadership, these things deserve to be protected and directed with care. You stop seeing your calendar as a list of obligations and you start seeing it as a reflection of your priority. That shift changes how you feel at the end of the day. Instead of feeling drained, you feel fulfilled. Not because everything went perfectly, but because you showed up with purpose. The truth is, most people don't live this way, not because they can't, but because they've never been taught to. They've been taught to hustle, to say yes, to keep up. But no one stops to ask them, what does a well-designed day look like for you? No one says, you have the right to protect your time. You have the ability to choose where your focus goes. And so they drift, they react, they survive. But successful people, they've learned to live differently. They've learned to start each day like a builder starts with blueprints, not with random bricks and chaos, but with a vision. They see their time as a canvas, not just a container. They know that every hour is a chance to create something that didn't exist before. Clarity, connection, momentum, peace. They're not waiting for the perfect day. They're designing it, one choice at a time. That design becomes a habit, and that habit becomes a culture, not just in their own life, but in the lives of those they lead. Because when you model intentionality, it gives others permission to do the same. When you live with purpose, it ripples outward. People don't just follow your words, they follow your rhythm, your calm, your clarity. That's the kind of leadership that lasts. Not just loud, but aligned. So if you want to do more than just make it through the day, if you want to lead, to create, to thrive, don't start with your to-do list. Start with your design. Ask yourself, what kind of day leads to the kind of life I want to build? Then make small, simple decisions that bring that day to life. Do that enough times, and you won't just have better days, you'll have a better story. One that you wrote. One day at a time. We live in a world that celebrates the yes. Say yes to opportunity. Say yes to every meeting, every project, every request. Be available, be agreeable, be accommodating. But if you look closely at the people who are truly successful, the ones who create lasting impact, who live with clarity and peace, they live by a different rule. They say no more often than most people are willing to. And not because they're cold, arrogant, or difficult, but because they understand something essential. Every yes is a no to something else. Time is finite. Energy is limited. Focus is fragile. And saying yes to something meaningless often means saying no to something deeply important. Time with your family, rest, creativity, space to think, space to breathe.